Welcome to another Badminton Talk podcast, brought to you by my mobile badminton shop and sponsored by the Q Shuttle. Hi, this is John Noble.
And this is Mark Topping.
Hiya, Mark. How are you?
Fantastic. And yourself, John?
Fantastic. Yet we're still in COVID, so it's great talking to you again over Zoom.
Again on Zoom, yes.
Yes.
Great piece of technology.
Yeah, hello to all our listeners, and today is a very special podcast because we're profiling a legendary player in the game of badminton in more ways than one. Let me introduce you to this player. First, give you some background. Former engineer and biogenetics at Imperial College of Science and Technology in England. Travelled to over 30 countries 500 times. He loves flying. He keeps fit. He climbs mountains. And of course, some people think he's crazy, but this guy is far from crazy. He's a left-handed badminton player. We all have to be careful with that. Ranked in the top 800, currently ranked 785. He's played so many tournaments at high levels, and he's had 2 stints at badminton. Who is this person? Let me think. Here is a clue.
When baby stars are few, don't give up on us, I know we can still come through.
Yes, don't give up. And this player certainly hasn't given up on any badminton. This is the one and only Ray Webster. Hiya, Ray. How are you doing?
I'm just great, and thanks for setting all this up. I feel privileged to be on your show, and look forward to hearing from other people too.
Yeah, it's great you're here, Ray. Mark, isn't it? Isn't it great to see Ray?
Absolutely. It's just an inspiring badminton player, Ray Webster from England, and it's great to have you on the podcast, Ray. Thanks very much.
Ray and Mark, of course, everyone, our listeners all over the world, in Ireland, in England, and Europe, everywhere. The format for today is exciting. We have the opportunity to put 10 questions to Ray. Are you up to it, Ray, for 10 questions? Can you manage that?
Yeah, I reckon I've got the stamina, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, one thing for sure, our fans want to hear you. Lots of them. They're shouting. Look, they want to come in, Ray. So I think we can get started and maybe kick off with the first question. Okay. So the very first question, Ray, I want to ask you is, tell us, how did you get into this game of badminton?
Well, I saw rackets when I was a toddler, and I saw a shuttlecock. I didn't understand what they were. And then a big centre opened in my hometown in Essex. And then, how lucky can anyone be? I was fortunate to be at the same centre as the legend Ray Stevens, England.
Whoa.
And you know, when I first met Ray, his dynamic energy nearly blew me over. It was like a tidal wave, just awesome.
Something like...
That was the first time I realised what chi or key energy is. And it's very powerful. And some people have a lot of it. So anyway, even though I began playing late, at the age of 19, and having never played as a junior, I trained with Ray's young squads. Ray taught me how to move on court and become fit for tough play. Mm-hmm. And after these sessions, we did a further session every week. But Ray stepped up the pace in those, and I was on the receiving end. That's totally stretched me. It was tough to score just a point. Yeah, I discovered something from being pushed hard. I got into flow state one time, and this is the state of mind where you play on autopilot. The most amazing experience got me into double figures in that game. I've since been in that mindful state just a few times, and it's enabled me to stretch one. And this is, when I've been playing open tournaments again. Anyway, this is what inspires me to go out there and be challenged, because if I can do that again, I'm going to make a good show. So that's my question one answered, I hope.
Wow.
Thank you, Ray. That's excellent. That is such an interesting answer. I find that fascinating about the flow state, and that's maybe something we'll go into in more detail another time or later on. I've got question number 2, Ray. Who is your favourite badminton player and why?
Well, you guys will all know him or know of him, and that goes back a bit to the late 70s. The one and only Rudy Hartono, Indonesia.
Yeah,
8 times England champion. Won it 7 times in a row. Now, he's my favourite because of the beautiful flowing way he moved on court. Those long, powerful strides, but like a panther. Even though the game has moved on to new eras, his play still stands out. Now, coincidentally, I later met Rudy Hartono's sister, Yutami, and she taught me more about being on the toes and the power we have in our feet. And, we think we move by our legs, but we forget our feet. And the foot contains the most powerful tendon. So, train your feet.
Yeah, Ray, fascinating. That's fascinating stuff. And just want to give a big shout out to all the fans in England that are listening to this podcast. And Mark and myself want to thank you for following us. Of course, we couldn't do this without the Q Shuttle sponsor. And thank you for that. Some of our listeners may not be aware, Ray is, as we talk about in digital terms, is not a Gen Z or a Gen XY. He is a baby boomer, like ourselves, which means he's a nice maturing age, well legible for seniors, masters, and competes on the circuit, and has been over to Ireland about 2 years ago, where I first met him, and Mark obviously knew him before, and it was great for you to come over to Ireland, and hopefully we'll see you back in an Irish tournament when the circuit opens again. But Ray, I want to ask you, I'm not giving you a chance there to answer, as you've noticed, so you're going to have to try and jump in when you're answering my question.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to come back to Ireland. You guys treated me so well.
See, he's jumped in already. Go ahead, Ray. Sorry, go ahead.
And I'll love to return the favour sometime. Yeah. So
Ray, you'll always be welcome over here, and it was great when you came over. Did some sparring with our young juveniles, show them some interesting, particularly your preparation before a match, the way you stretch. If anybody hasn't met Ray, he's like an elastic band. He stretches. Stretching is so much part of preparation, and it's no wonder, Ray, you're still so fit and able to compete with the very best players in the world in terms of going out there, not getting injuries, and aiming for your goal. But we'll talk about that later. I want to ask you, Ray, what is your favourite brand and why?
Well, I don't have a favourite brand in particular. It's really coincidental that I began playing with Yonex, and I just happened to stay with Yonex. Mm-hmm. And in my day, I started on wooden rackets. And after the 30-year interval when I didn't play, which 62, and I'm 66 now, when I picked up, these modern rackets, I couldn't hit because it was just like trying to use a feather, and the whole head just swang straight through the shuttle, and the shuttle went behind me. But, it didn't take me too long to pick up. And I've still got a set of wooden rackets, and sometimes I train with those because the heavy head, very good for development of the... And maybe I'm going to pull 1 or 2 of those out for a Masters one day.
Woohoo! Yes.
Yeah. Or I'm thinking World Championships, Senior World Championships, this end of this year.
That's right, yeah. The Senior World Championships is in Spain in December, Ray, so
yes,
I hope I'll see you there.
Yeah, we're all looking forward and hope that comes off.
Yeah, Ray, just picking up, I'm mad into badminton coaching, and you said something very interesting earlier on, which I totally agree with. I don't think people pay enough attention to the feet and the big toes in particular, and just raising the heels slightly off the ground so that you're using your big toe a lot more. It's a very strong, flexible toe. and
Right.
is very
That's right.
powerful.
That's right.
Anyway, Ray, we'll move on to question 4. I've got question 4 for you. Would you tell us one thing our listeners would not know about you, Ray?
Ooh.
That's right. I've sometimes kept this to myself. I've told a few people, but I do have a long-term. It's not repairable, and it had nothing to do with badminton. It probably started when I was age 13, trying to pull a tree out of the ground, of all what stupid things you can do as a kid. But it was kind of okay, and then something else, aggravated it, and then a third time aggravated it, and then I got these huge fascia tears in the abdominal muscles, and that basically floored me for 7 years.
Ouch.
And it was only later on that I learnt yoga that I was able to get mobile again and get rid of all these adhesions that totally tied me up. Very difficult to work, very painful all the time, and so on. But then on in that period, and what happened was I went through a very tough mental time about 15 years ago. I had the most fantastic job in the world. I was traveling around the world. I was a human dynamo. I was on call 24 hours a day, and I just cruised the whole thing. I was actually an engineer then, working in the production of microprocessors. And and I wore all this COVID kit, the full body suit,
Wow.
But this wasn't to protect me; it was to protect me from the product.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I was just cruising. But then things changed at work. Management changed. I got way too much pressure, and it could burn anybody out. And basically, I burned out from work and some other things. And I went from being a human dynamo to a state of severe depression. And I tell you what, I don't recommend depression, because it's not like you can get up out of bed and go and kill yourself, because basically you don't want to get out of bed. It's horrible. Yeah. All you want to do is you want to go to bed and you put the pillow over your head and that's it. But despite that, there's always this candle burning underneath and in the background, and that candle, that flame keeps you going, and eventually, if that candle is strong enough, you'll find a way out. And the way I found a way out of this depression was to work physically. I went out on a bike and I rode till I couldn't ride anymore, and I ran till I was exhausted. And what that does, it builds endorphins, and endorphins are what we need. This is what happens on a badminton court. You don't need drugs, you need endorphins. The most addictive but beneficial drug in the world. So,
wow, Ray.
So the other thing that happened with the stress from work, I also learned a lot about the subconscious mind, and I've talked to the American psychologist about this, Matt Fogarty, and he's one of the other 65-year plus players on the circuit, and he's actually won a few matches as well.
Let's give him a shout out. Shout out to Matt Fogarty.
Matt Fogarty, actually I played him in the 70s, he's also a lefty. But anyway, he said that I'd learned to really understood the subconscious mind and what makes us tick. And I learned that I need to become an alpha person or alpha dog, and you'll find that most of the world's leading players have got this alpha mentality, And you can still be a nice person if you're an alpha dog.
Does that include the women, Ray, as well? When you say alpha dogs, like metaphorically speaking, too,
Alpha bitch, then.
Yes, in a positive way. Yeah, understood.
So, if you get into this situation through some stressful situation in your life, I'm kind of ad-libbing here, because what happens is, if you're not an alpha type, you'll go into runaway mode, and we call it fight or flight. And I went into flight because I had no way to fight this problem. It's because I had no opponent. Who was the opponent? I was basically fighting myself. So my mind told me to run away. But the thing is, when you run away, you create a complete imbalance in the body, and you produce toxic chemicals. Your adrenaline goes through the roof, and so what happens is it causes all sorts of things. Your circulation starts to shut down. Your hormones are up the spout, and what it did, it affected my ability to walk. And I found I was stepping off the pavement down the high street, and my legs would buckle, nearly fell on the floor. And then it went right down to my having the soles of my feet ripped off. I mean, this is like the power of the subconscious mind, okay? So I learned a lot from that. But I also learned that if I can use the good side of the subconscious mind and get into this flow state, I'll be well back into double figures again.
Well, Ray, it's sorry to cut across you there. It is brilliant to see you grace the courts the way you do, with that determination to achieve that double-digit goal, and no doubt that's going to happen and happen in the not too distant future. That's a really fascinating, in-depth look, Ray, to something we didn't know, and I know that one would have been very personal. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners, Ray, if you don't mind me saying that.
I'm happy to say, because there'd be other people out there in similar situations, and that is, you just got to go out and battle it. You don't give in to it,
Yeah.
And by making yourself feel good, you're improving your whole mental state. And if you improve your mental state, your whole body hormonal system, your chemical factory is just going to get back in tune, and your health will return, and you'll stay healthy. It's so important. So let's hope we're all back on the court soon.
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
Ray.
Yeah, Ray, I find that absolutely fascinating, and just echo what John said. Thank you for sharing that. It's not an easy thing to talk about sometimes, mental health, and I think it's such an important area.
It's got a bad stigma, depression, but it happens to all of us, and it badly affected my father, So I couldn't afford that to happen again, because I was looking after my mother after my father died, and that helped, helped me stay afloat. But badminton now is the thing that is really doing it for me,
Well, Ray, I have to say, like, today it's the 4th of February. Sorry, it's okay to cut across people on this podcast. That's the way it works with my mobile badminton shop, of course. But what I wanted to say is an awful lot of people we know in COVID have lost loved ones, and depression has been very, very high. It's been on even the news today on the 4th of February 2021 when we're recording this podcast. So people need to be looked after, and we really respect anyone's stories in this area. And as you said, no one can escape it at some stage. And it's great that you fought back. And boy, looking at you here on the Zoom screen, you look like a 26-year-old with your baseball hat and your astronaut's microphone. So it's great to see you there, Ray. I want to ask you. I want to move on and ask you something. And I know, Ray, it's great. You say it from the heart, and you say your thoughts, and that's great. You don't talk behind closed doors. You say it. This is an opportunity for you to tell us anything you wish about the sport of badminton, which frustrates you, and that's okay. There are a lot of things that frustrate people. They don't share their thoughts, and we would love if you could tell us what might frustrate you and could be improved. Something you feel very strong about, Ray.
Yeah. Well, basically, I think there is a bit of a problem that I've encountered, and many other players encounter the same problem. And it stems from, people always want to play someone who's at their level or better than them. But the thing is, right, who better than them will want to, right? So they don't want to play down. So what you find is sometimes, you go on to your allotted practice court, sometimes it's allocated to a country, And then you find that some of the coaches have got their particular player. Yeah, they've got their vested interest. They sometimes hog the warm-up courts, and when I see that situation happening, I find that annoying and frustrating because look, we've spent our money too. We've spent 300 or 400 euros, sometimes more, going to travel out somewhere across Europe or further, and then we might respect that they're a national player or someone who's better than us, but we want our share of the court. Number of minutes on the court, but just sufficient to go out and have a hit, just feel the boundaries, get a feel of the background, and this is unfair when they do that, and some of the players do it, and they're actually not aware that they're doing it, just kind of right. Well, they haven't looked at who are the players from England, and so on, and that applies to every country. But I'll tell you what, I give credit to some of the nations especially, and particularly to the Thai, Malaysian and Taipei teams who allowed me onto their courts, and we played 3-on-3, and even one time Japan. Now can be a very close shot, Japan, and I felt very privileged for them to allow me on. And we had a great time, perhaps it was just 5 or 7 minutes, and we're all smiling, and they saw that I could hit, and I had winners, and we even won a 3v3 one time, and also find all the guys from India, all the players from India, they're so gracious, and they've often warmed up with me, and the thing is, by doing that, you're crossing boundaries across nations, across race, and that just makes for a happy badminton community. So I'm so pleased when those, when people mix like that,
Mark, you want to?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, it's just, I suppose, it's just, I would say it's just natural human manners, or just to make sure that everybody's getting their equitable or fair share of the practice court. I think that's so important. And obviously some human beings are maybe more empathetic or can see the situation than others. It's just I suppose, the nature of human beings. We're not all perfect. But it's a very good point you make. By sharing a bit of a court, you have a connection, a friendship that maybe starts to develop, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such interesting stuff going on. What interesting information and insight from Ray Webster. Wow, it's great stuff. We are out of time, Mark.
Again, John, the time flies too much.
Yeah, can you believe it? We are out of time. This is part one of a two-part profile. Our profile with Ray Webster, known as Ray Mondo, from Badminton, England. And a big shout out to all our English fans listening. Yes, we hope you're enjoying it. We hope to be back over competing in your events some stage soon. By the way, this has been recorded on Zoom. There's a few little bumpies at the moment, as you know, on the podcast, but we have to, Mark, we have to stay safe. We have to respect the COVID. Yes, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. I'm staying at home. I'm sure most people are. And Zoom is a great way to communicate with everybody. But it'll be great when we can get back together, John, and record shoulder to shoulder. Yeah,
shoulder to shoulder. And we just a big shout out to all our contributors, because everyone that comes on My Mobile Badminton Shop .ie, which is sponsored, of course, as we know, by the Q Shuttle, kindly volunteers their time, and this allows us to help us, Mark, myself, and everyone that comes on, to promote this game of badminton everywhere in the world. So that's about it, Mark. Where are you off to now?
I don't know. I think we're going to go for a walk, John. It's a beautiful day, so I'll take a 30-minute walk and listen to some music.
Okay, so Mark is going to go for a walk and listen to music. I'm actually going to go for a walk too. I hope, Mark, we don't bump into each other because we've spoken so much. We need a break. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Don't want to talk to you for another while, John.
Okay, not till next Saturday. So we see you next Saturday, 11 a.m. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thanks, John.
Good morning.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.